The girl in the lavender sweater, the 2-year mystery of Dana Dodd. Imagine the sound of a phone ringing in the dead of night. Your heart jumps into your throat. You rush to answer it, praying, hoping, begging the universe that this is the call that tells you they are safe, the call that tells you your child has finally come home. But when you pick up the receiver, there is only silence. This is a pain that no parent, no sibling, no family should ever have to endure. But for the family of a young girl named Dana, this wasn't just one night of silence. This was a silence that lasted for 12 long, agonizing years. There is a unique kind of hell in not knowing. When a loved one dies, the grief is a massive, crushing weight, but it is a finite pain. You have a grave to visit. You have a place to leave flowers. You have closure. But when a loved one simply vanishes, the grief never ends. It just morphs. It turns into a ghost that haunts every corner of your life. You see them in the grocery store. You hear their laugh in a crowded street. You keep their bedroom exactly the way they left it, just in case they walk through the door. You live in a perpetual state of false hope. And the most painful part, sometimes the answer to your prayers is actually a nightmare. Sometimes the person you are waiting for has been gone all along, and they didn't die peacefully. They didn't pass away in a hospital bed surrounded by love. They met a violent, terrifying end, hundreds of miles away from home, entirely alone, stripped of their identity, and left to burn in the cold dirt. Today, we are opening the file on one of the most heartbreaking, frustrating, and ultimately devastating cases in American true crime history. It is a story that spans from the sunny coasts of Florida to the dense, unforgiving woods of East Texas. But above all, it is the story of a girl who was reduced to a nickname. For over a decade, the world didn't know her name. They only knew the color of the sweater she was wearing when her life was brutally taken from her. They called her Lavender Doe. Her real name was Dana Lynn Dodd. To understand the tragedy of how Dana Dodd died, we first have to understand the life she was trying to live. Dana Lynn Dodd was born on September 6, 1985. She was a child of the mid-80s, growing up in Jacksonville, Florida. If you were to look at her life on paper, it might seem ordinary, but behind closed doors, Dana's early life was anything but easy. Like many young people who find themselves in turbulent home environments, Dana had a restless spirit. She felt trapped, she felt misunderstood, and like countless teenagers before her, she looked at the horizon and thought, if I can just get away, if I can just start over, I can be whoever I want to be. Dana was known to be fiercely independent. She had a tough exterior, but those who knew her said she had a heart of gold. She was a survivor, but survival often comes with scars. As she entered her late teens, the friction in her personal life reached a boiling point. Dana made a decision that would alter the trajectory of her life forever. She decided to leave. She didn't leave with a grand plan. She didn't leave a detailed itinerary. She just packed her bags, took whatever cash she could gather, and hit the road. For her family back in Florida, this wasn't entirely out of character. Dana had a history of running away when things got tough. They knew she was stubborn. They knew she needed to find her own way. So when the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, her family didn't immediately panic. They didn't assume the worst. They assumed she was just living her life. They assumed she was working a diner job in some tiny town, or traveling the country, or just taking a time out from the chaos of her home life. They told themselves, she'll call when she's ready, she'll come back when she's done figuring things out. This is the cruelest trick the human mind plays on itself, the assumption of safety. We protect our hearts by believing the best. But as 2005 bled into 2006, the silence from Dana began to feel heavier. The phone calls didn't come. The postcards never arrived. The initial patience of her family began to curdle into a quiet, gnawing anxiety. But still, they held on to hope. They kept her number active. They kept a light on. They had no idea that hundreds of miles away, in the deep, piney woods of East Texas, the clock on Dana's life had already stopped. They had no idea that their daughter, their sister, their beloved Dana was already gone. The date was October 29th, 2006. The location was Gregg County, Texas, just outside the city of Kilgore. This is a remote, heavily wooded area, a place where the trees grow thick and the secrets stay buried. It was early in the morning. Two local men had gone out into the woods to do some target shooting. It was supposed to be a routine weekend activity. A few rounds of fire fire, some camaraderie, and a trip back home. But as they were walking through the dense brush, they noticed something unusual. In the distance, rising above the canopy of the pine trees, there was smoke. At first they thought it might be a campfire left burning by some transients or hunters. But as they got closer, the smell hit them. It wasn't the smell of burning wood. It was something else. Something sickeningly sweet and horrific. They pushed through the branches and stumbled into a small clearing. And there, in the center of the clearing, was a macabre scene that would be burned into their memories for the rest of their lives. Lying face down on the dirt was the body of a young woman. She was resting on top of a pile of wood, and the wood was still smoldering. Her killer had tried to burn her. They had tried to erase her. They had tried to turn her into ash and smoke, to make her disappear from the face of the earth. But the fire hadn't been hot enough. It hadn't been enough to destroy the truth. The men immediately called the Gregg County Sheriff's Office. When the deputies and the forensic teams arrived, they began the grim task of processing the scene. The autopsy would later reveal a brutal reality. Dana had not died in the fire. The fire was post-mortem. It was an attempt to hide a murder. The actual cause of death was determined to be a violent physical assault. She had been beaten and strangled. Her killer had looked her in the eyes, taken her life, and then callously set her body ablaze. But who was she? The investigators scoured the area for clues. Her pockets had been picked through, but strangely the killer had left behind a crumpled $40 bill. It wasn't a robbery, or if it was a botched one. The most crucial piece of evidence was her clothing. Despite the severe burn damage to her body, a significant portion of her outfit had survived. She was wearing a pair of jeans, and on her upper body she was wearing a distinct purple sweater, lavender, because her fingerprints were destroyed by the fire and her face was unrecognizable. The police had nothing to go on, no ID, no phone, no driver's license. She was completely, utterly unidentified. In the world of law enforcement, an unidentified victim is given a placeholder name, a Jane Doe, but the investigators and the local media needed a way to refer to her to generate tips. They looked at the one piece of color that had survived the flames. They called her Lavender Doe. The investigation into the murder of Lavender Doe began with a flurry of activity. Police released the details to the media. They put up billboards. They aired the story on the local Texas news. Who is this girl? She is estimated to be between 17 and 25 years old. She is about 5'3" to 5'5". She was wearing a lavender sweater. Forensic artists worked tirelessly to create a facial reconstruction. Using the skull of the unidentified victim, they layered on the tissue, the muscle, the skin. They gave her eyes again. They gave her a face. The composite sketch was hauntingly beautiful, but it was also deeply unsettling. She looked so young, so innocent. Who was she? Where did she come from? Why was she in the woods of Kilgore, Texas? As the months turned into years, the local news cameras packed up and left. The billboards faded in the Texas sun. The police detectives who initially worked the case retired or moved on to other crimes. The file on Lavender Doe grew thick with dust. But in the digital age, a cold case is never truly cold. If the internet is watching, enter the world of web sleuths. Online communities like the Doe Network, the Unidentified Wiki, and various true crime forums became the new detectives. These were amateur sleuths, armchair investigators, and deeply empathetic strangers who refused to let Lavender Doe be forgotten. They created dedicated websites. They shared her facial reconstruction on every social media platform available. They analyzed the clothing. They analyzed the $40 bill. They analyzed the geography. They noticed that Kilgore, Texas, is situated right near Interstate 20. It's a major highway that cuts straight across the country, connecting the deep south to the west coast. If someone was traveling, if someone was running away, they would likely pass right through here. Years passed. By 2008, the case had completely stalled in the traditional system. The police were stuck. The family in Florida was still waiting, completely unaware that the girl they were looking for was the subject of a massive online manhunt in Texas. Think about the tragic irony of this. At the exact same time that internet strangers were posting Lavender Doe's sketch on forums, begging for someone to identify her, Dana's family in Florida was looking at missing person websites, hoping to find a trace of her. They were two ships passing in the night. The family was looking for Dana, The internet was looking for Lavender Doe, and nobody realized they were the exact same person. Why didn't the family recognize the sketch? Forensic reconstructions are rarely perfect. They are estimates. The fire had damaged her features, and frankly, when your child is missing, you don't want to look at pictures of murdered Jane Does. You hold on to the belief that they are alive. You avoid the dark stuff because acknowledging it means acknowledging the end. So, Lavender Doe remained a ghost, a phantom haunting the Texas woods and a phantom haunting her family's dreams. The breakthrough didn't come from a detective having a eureka moment. It didn't come from a killer confessing on their deathbed. It came from science, and it came from the kindness of strangers. The year was 2018, 12 years after Dana's body was found in the woods. A volunteer organization called the Dana Doe Project took up the case of Lavender Doe. This is a group of brilliant, relentless genetic genealogists who dedicate their lives to identifying the unidentified. They work for free. They do it because they believe every single person deserves to have their name spoken aloud. The challenge was monumental. Dana's body had been burned. The DNA extracted from her remains was highly degraded. It was fragmented, damaged, and incredibly difficult to sequence. Most labs would have given up. They would have said the sample was ruined. But the volunteers at the Dana Doe Project refused to quit. They used advanced, cutting-edge sequencing techniques to piece together the shattered fragments of her genetic code. It was like trying to put together a million-piece puzzle in the dark with half the pieces missing. Finally, they got a workable DNA profile, and they uploaded it to GEDmatch, a public genetic genealogy database. They didn't get a direct match. They weren't looking for a parent or a sibling. They were looking for distant echoes, third cousins, fourth cousins, people who shared a tiny, microscopic fraction of DNA with Lavender Doe. The volunteers mapped out these distant relatives. They built family trees. They traced lineage back generations through census records, birth certificates, and marriage licenses. They worked backward in time and then forward again, looking for a branch on the tree that led to a missing person. They noticed a distinct pattern of Czech ancestry in the DNA. They narrowed the search to families with that specific heritage, and then, after months of grueling, painstaking work, the family tree converged on a single name, a young woman from Jacksonville, Florida, who had gone missing around the exact time Lavender Doe was found in Texas. The name was Dana Lynn Dodd. To be absolutely sure, the Dana Doe Project reached out to Dana's family in Florida. They asked for a simple DNA sample, a swab of the cheek. When the results came back, there was no doubt. The genetic match was undeniable. The ghost in the Texas woods had a name. Lavender Doe was Dana Dodd. In January 2019, the Gregg County Sheriff's Office made the call to the Dodd family in Florida. Imagine being that parent for 12 years. You have kept hope alive. You have told everyone, my daughter is out there. She's just living her life. You have defended that hope against all logic, and then the phone rings, and the voice on the other end tells you that the hope was a lie, that your daughter didn't run away to start a new life, that she was murdered, that she was burned in a forest, that she has been lying in a pauper's grave, unknown and unloved by the world, for 12 long years. The grief that must have hit that family was beyond comprehension. It was a secondary trauma. The pain of the murder was now compounded by the pain of the 12 years of ignorance. They hadn't been able to mourn her. They hadn't been able to bury her. They had been living in a state of suspended animation, and now the floor had completely fallen out from under them. But amidst the absolute devastation, there was a tiny, fragile sliver of peace. They finally knew. With an identity finally attached to the case, the investigation into her murder was reignited. The police weren't just looking for a Jane Doe anymore. They were looking for the man who killed Dana Dodd. Investigators retraced her steps. They looked into her life in the months leading up to her death. They discovered that before ending up in Texas, Dana had been living a transient lifestyle, moving from town to town, trying to find her footing. Their investigation led them to a man named Joseph Wayne Burnett. Burnett was a drifter, a man with a dark history and a violent temper. Investigators discovered that he had been in the same circles as Dana. He had been traveling along that same stretch of Interstate 20. In August 2018, even before the DNA confirmation was made public, Burnett was arrested. The pressure of the interrogation was too much. He broke. He confessed to the murder of the young woman in the woods, but But even in his confession, he stole her identity one last time. He told the police that he didn't know her real name. He claimed she had told him her name was Ashley. He beat her, he strangled her, and then to cover up his monstrous act, he piled wood over her body and set it on fire. He thought the flames would hide his sin. He thought he could turn a human being into an unsolvable puzzle. Burnett was charged with capital murder. He eventually pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty, sentencing himself to life in prison. He also pleaded guilty to the murder of another woman, Felicia Pearson, proving that Dana was not his first victim and likely wouldn't have been his last. He was a predator who used the open highways to hunt vulnerable young women. But for the Dodd family, the justice of Burnett's imprisonment was only a small part of the story. The real closure came in September 2019, 13 years after she left home. Dana Lynn Dodd was finally brought back to Florida. They held a funeral. They had a casket. They had a headstone with her actual name carved into the stone. For the first time in over a decade, her family could stand over her grave and speak to her. They could leave flowers. They could say goodbye. The nightmare was over. The ghost was laid to rest. Dana Dodd was no longer Lavender Doe. She was no longer a statistic, a skull in an evidence locker, or a sketch on a forum. She was a daughter. She was a sister. The story of Dana Dodd is a tragedy of epic proportions. It is a story of a life cut short, of a family tortured by false hope, and of a justice system that almost let her fade into oblivion. But it is also a story of triumph. It is a testament to the power of genetic genealogy, the dedication of volunteer sleuths, and the unbreakable bond of a family that never stopped looking. There are still thousands of unidentified people lying in graves across this country, thousands of Jane Does and John Does waiting for someone to speak their name. Dana's story proves that it is never too late. No matter how much time has passed, no matter how badly burned the evidence is, science and persistence can bring them home. If this story touched your heart, if you felt the pain of Dana's family, and if you believe that every single victim deserves to be identified and remembered, I need your support. Please take a second to hit that like button. It helps this video reach more people, and you never know who might see it and help solve another cold case. Share this video with your friends and family to keep Dana's memory alive. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story. Until next time, keep looking out for each other and never stop seeking the truth.